Quran says to reject the Trinity. It'll say, don't say three and things like that. The closest it ever gets to defining what the Trinity is Surah 5, 116, where Allah is asking Jesus about all the confusion over him on the judgment day. And Allah says, did I tell you to take you and your mother as gods in addition to me? And so this is in a chapter where you're told to reject the Trinity. And then you get to what the Trinity is, and it's God, Jesus, and Mary. And they're three separate deities who just work together closely. And so, what's interesting is I understand a 7th century Arabian caravan robber misunderstanding who's even in the Trinity, right? I understand that. Wait, I'm hearing you guys talking about the Trinity. I'm hearing you talking about Jesus, and I'm hearing you talking about Mary, the mother, and I'm hearing you talk about the Father. So that's what the Trinity is, right? I understand Muhammad missing that, not understanding that. It's very weird that God in his word misunderstood that, right? It would be weird if the Quran's supposedly the word of Allah. I expect Allah to actually know what the doctrine of the Trinity is.
You would think so.
And he would state it accurately and then refute it, because since he completely misrepresents it to the point where to this day, Muslims think that that's what the Trinity is made up of.
Well,
Faster than you can say mental hospitals, disabled kids, and hammers, or should I say disabled dead kids and hammers. David Wood always brings up the Quran, alleged errors of the Quran. Well, he brings up the Quran chapter 5, verse 116, which, let's read it right now. Verse 116 says, and imagine when thereafter Allah will say, Jesus, son of Mary, did you say to people, take me and my mother as for gods besides Allah? And he will answer, glory to you. It was not for me to say what I had no right to say, what I had no right to. Had I said so, you would have surely known it. So, you would have known it. You know what is hidden within me, but I do not know what is hidden within you. Indeed, you alone are the knower of the unseen. Quran chapter 5, verse 116. Now, where is the Trinity mentioned in the Quran chapter 5, verse 116? It's not there. The Quran never defines what the Trinity is. The Quran just says, don't say Trinity. In fact, the Quran mentions the Trinity while the Bible does not. Nowhere in the Bible does it mention the word Trinity. Or at least, the New Testament. So, anyways, where does David Wood get the Trinity out of the Quran chapter 5, verse 116? All that verse is saying is Allah is telling Jesus, did you tell people to worship you and your mother besides me? It says, on the day of judgment, Allah will say, O Jesus, son of Mary, did you ever ask the people to worship you and your mother as gods besides Allah? The Quran does not define what the Trinity is. The Quran does not say the Trinity is Father, Son, and Mother, or the Quran does not say the Trinity is Father, Son, Holy Spirit. The Quran does not define what the Trinity is, so the Quran is not in error when it says the Quran chapter 5 verse 116 is not in error because it's not talking about the Trinity. Now, what is the Quran talking about when it talks about Mary being worshipped? Is the Quran in error there? No, it's not, because before the Quran was revealed, the title Mother of God was being passed around by churches. So that means the Christians before Muhammad were saying that the Trinity, that the Virgin Mary was the Mother of God, and they were holding special dedications and prayers to her, and they were calling to her, etc., etc. Also, the Quran chapter 5 verse 116 could be referring to the Catholics. Catholics today call out to the Virgin Mary, say she's the Mother of God, a goddess, etc., etc. All you got to do is just look up, Virgin Mary worship, right? So if you just do some research, you'll say veneration of Mary in the Catholic Church. The veneration of Mary in the Catholic Church encompasses various devotions, which include prayer, virtuous acts, pious acts, visual arts, poetry, and music devoted to her. Does the Catholic Bible say to worship Mary? Catholics view Mary not as a goddess. Catholics honor or venerate the Blessed Virgin Mary. It says prayer to Mary is memory of the great mysteries of our faith. So people do pray to the Virgin Mary. It's called Marian prayer. It says prayer to Mary is a memory of the great mysteries of faith, incarnation, redemption through Christ, and rosary. Praise to God for the wonderful things he has done in and through one of his creatures. Hail Mary and intercessions. Second half of the Hail Mary. The Catholics' honor and love of Mary reflects their deep love of God who made Mary who she is. Luke chapter 1 verse 48 says, Mary proclaims that old generations will call me blessed. I'm trying to look for... Okay, it says Roman Catholics worship Mary as if she was a god. According to this website, it says, exposing the idolatry of Mary worship, an overview. So, basically you get my point. If you just type in, Virgin Mary worship, you'll get like a lot of hits on, worship of the Virgin Mary. Why do Catholics worship Mary? So you get like a lot of these hits, or you get a lot of Catholic websites basically admitting praying to her, calling out to her, etc., etc. So this verse, Quran chapter 5, verse 1 to 16, could be referring to the Catholics of today and of the past. Same thing with like the title Mother of God, right? Let's look that up right now. Mother of God. It says, why do we call Mary the Mother of God? That means that Mary was seen as the Mother of God, by Christians before the time of the Prophet Muhammad. It says the phrase Mother of God traces back to the 3rd century, before the time of Muhammad, and continues to be used in some lingual churches, including the Roman Catholic Church. One of the topics at the Council of Ephesus in 431 AD, which is, before the time of Muhammad, was the use of the Greek term Theokos, literally means God-bearer, the one who gives birth to God, in reference to Mary. The council's use of Theokos was meant to counter the heresy of Zoroastrianism, which cleaved the nature and person of Christ in two, Christ's human and divine natures. So, you get my point. I'm trying to get to where it explicitly says. Okay, it says the Roman Catholic leaders teach their followers to go to Mary to find help in their time of need. From the most ancient times, that means before the time of Muhammad, the Blessed Virgin Mary has been honored with the title Mother of God, to whose protection the faithful fly in the dangers and needs. So basically, you have people singing hymns and praises to the Virgin Mary. And what else is there? Basically, if you just do a little bit of research, the term Mother of God was used before the time of Muhammad. Catholics, do call out to the Virgin Mary, do say she's, the Mother of God, etc., etc. Mary has been venerated since early Christianity. So what this means is that the Quran is definitely correct that Christians before the time of Muhammad and after the time of the Prophet Muhammad were devoting a lot of attention and praise and devotion and dedication to the Virgin Mary, like as if she was like a goddess or something like that. And then again, you have the Catholics, right? You have the Catholics that venerate the Virgin Mary to extreme levels, and their devotions include prayer. So who do you pray to? According to the Bible, you pray to God and and various holy figures. So Virgin Mary, according to the Catholic Church, is seen as the same devotional status or prayer status like Jesus is, etc., etc. So you have veneration of Mary in the Catholic Church, etc. So the whole point is that people before Muhammad and people after the Prophet Muhammad were saying Mary was seen as like a god, etc. But my point is the Quran chapter 5 verse 116. This is the whole reason why I'm making this video. Does not define what the Trinity is. The Quran never says the Trinity is Father, Son, and Mother. The Quran doesn't give a explicit or a definitive definition of what the Christian Trinity is. So the Quran is not in error here. The only person who's in error is David Wood, who's reading words into that verse which aren't there. The Quran does not say, in the Quran chapter 5 verse 116, say the Trinity. Did you say to the people, here's the Trinity, Father, Son, and Mother, and worship those three in one? The Quran does not say that. It just, Allah is basically telling Jesus, why did you take you and your mother as gods besides me? So the Quran chapter 5 verse 116, my guess is it's talking about the Catholics after the time of the Prophet Muhammad, and it's talking about the people before the Prophet Muhammad who are saying Mary was the mother of God and she was venerated before the time of Islam, before the time of the Prophet Muhammad. So I think that's what the Quran is talking about, but I don't know. But I don't know for sure. But the Quran is not in error. My point is the Quran's not in error when it talks about the Trinity, because the Quran does not define what the Christian Trinity is to begin with. All it says is it calls out Christians for over exaggerating the status of Jesus and the Virgin Mary, which they do. People do venerate the Virgin Mary. The Catholic Church does go to extremes in venerating and devoting in devotion to the Virgin Mary. So the Quran is not in error here. It's talking about the Catholics, which is my guess or my theory. But I don't know. Allow them. So basically, the Quran's not in error here. The only person who's in error is David Wood, who's so obsessed with finding an error in the Quran that he reads words that aren't actually there. It's absolutely amazing just how idiotic he can be when he reads the Quran, because he reads too much into it, and he imagines things which is not what the verse is saying. The verse is not talking about the Trinity. It's just talking about the extremes men went to overpraise and over pray to, or over devoting or over devotion to figures like Jesus and the Virgin Mary, which is true historically before the time of the Prophet Muhammad and after the time of the Prophet Muhammad in the modern day Catholic churches. So the Quran's not in error here. The only thing that's in error is David Wood and his obsessive need to find some errors in the Quran which really aren't there. Stay tuned. More videos coming up ahead. So hopefully this hammers the argument down. Pun intended.